Welcome to the Troubadour channel. My name is Kirk, and today I have
Mark Pellegrino, actor, sometimes producer and writer.
For Bouani, screenwriter.
Jacqueline Schumann, otherwise known as Jax, also screenwriter.
and we are going to be talking about the movie Hamnet with the purpose of helping you get more out of the movie, enjoy it more, understand the acting, the cinematography, the themes. I think we're going to we like to focus on themes and philosophy that's in these things, but we'll be talking about all of those things. So make sure you stick around and enjoy the show. Okay, so what I wanted to start with this time, rather than doing our normal thumbs up, thumbs down, is our first impressions. And I prefer not to start, but I will if you want. But what I want is like just when the fade out happened, well, the first thing that you thought or experienced or anything like that. Who would like to start besides me?
There, what I'm holding up is
Okay. Just
my dried tears. My dried tears.
Okay.
That's my first impression. I was a bawling mess.
Okay. You were crying. Okay.
I was so crying, and I didn't think I would, but I was so crying.
Okay. So you were skeptical about your emotional response, but then it hits you.
Correct.
Okay. Anybody else?
Yeah, I would say the same. I thought the end made the entire movie worthwhile, and it was cathartic for me as it was for the characters.
Oh yeah. Oh yeah. Jennifer, do you want to go?
Um, I was pleasantly surprised. I wasn't expecting much from this, and I had no idea that it had been nominated for Oscars. I just didn't research it. I just went along with what you guys wanted to watch. So, yeah, I really enjoyed the story. I enjoyed from the perspective that it was told, the point of view of Shakespeare's wife mostly. And I appreciated not only just looking at how Hamlet was inspired, and wow, that blew me away. Yes, I was moved by the ending, but also a look into what it was like to have kids dying of bubonic plague and giving childbirth in those years. I mean, I know it was bad, but you really, really feel it because the actress just she really made you feel it. So
Yeah.
like loved it.
So the way I thought it would, the next thing I'd like to do is just,
Well, what about you? What was
oh,
yours?
sorry.
How
Yeah.
did you walk
I
away?
forgot.
Come on, we're not letting you off the hook, Kirk.
So well, I already told you guys actually, so I'll say it on live, for the audience. But like, I think I told you when I mentioned Hamnet a while back that it made me cry a lot. Like I was bawling as well. So it definitely made me very emotionally. It was a wonderful experience that I also wasn't quite expecting. And I want to talk about that climactic scene quite a bit in a little bit. That'll be, I think, a big part of our discussion. So thank you for reminding to do that. So the thing that I thought we could talk about first or next is history and art, or history and myth. Like what historians know about Shakespeare's life, and what the author of this book and the director were kind of playing into and kind of making up on their own elements of this. So if you know something too, let me know. But well, actually, let me ask you guys this. Maybe this will be a quiz. I could be a teacher. So did Shakespeare have a son named Hamnet? Do we know
Yes,
this? Yeah, we do
yes.
know that. So we
Yes.
do know he was born in 1585. He did have a twin, Judith. He died 1596. And there is a burial recorded. How about the distance between his wife and Shakespeare's wife and him being in London? So she wasn't always there with him. Is that historically accurate as far as we know?
Yeah, I mean,
Yes.
I think when they're in Stratford, I only know him from living in Stratford, and that's about 120 miles away from London, which would have been quite a haul for somebody in the 16th century.
Yeah, so he did obviously work as an actor and a playwright. He was often in London, and so he was often away from his family, especially during the season, the acting season, when the and he mentions this in the movie, right? Like the players are coming into town. He needs to come to go be there. How about the name Hamnet and Hamlet being interchangeable, which is mentioned at the beginning of the movie?
That apparently it was very common for names to be kind of loosey goosey. It was the same thing with maybe I'm taking your thunder away, but it's the same
No.
thing with his wife's name. And
Yeah.
yes, because she was also known as Anne, Anne Hathaway,
Anne
who
Hathaway.
I
Anne
only know
Hathaway's.
her as Anne Hathaway, so I thought it was licensed on the part of the author, but that's how I
No,
know her.
well, what I read was that they found apparently she didn't she was older in real life. She was older than Shakespeare. She
Hmm.
was like 26, he was 18. And she came with a dowry. Like her father died and was rich apparently and left her a ton of money. And in his will, he talked about my dear Agnes. So apparently her name is interchangeable as well.
Yeah, and also people have nicknames, and they didn't have like the kind of solid records we have today, I think. So I imagine there's a lot more of that. But yeah, so I think that's a really good point. Okay, so I think there's a couple now of, well, one more that is true, but this is where we start, I think, getting into the murkier category of things. It is true that Hamlet was written shortly after Hamnet's death. That's true. Now, the all the implications of that are, of course, suggestive because we have no information that he like was in a grief state, and that's what came out of Hamlet, other than the fact that it's named Hamlet. So that is a kind of a big clue.
And that Hamlet is traditionally blonde, which makes the assumption that, I mean, if Hamnet, we don't know if the real
We don't know
Hamnet
anything.
was
So that's
blonde.
that's another.
Yeah.
So that's where literature and art is a really tricky thing, right? Because they
Yeah.
make you think that he's blonde. He probably was, but he was really blonde there. Like they stressed it for the purposes of the movie, and I thought they did a wonderful job of it. Okay, here's a couple things that I think we do not that are not true. Um, the cause of Hamnet's death.
Hmm.
So there's no record of any illness, no
No.
details whatsoever.
Well,
Right?
there was, and like in the year that he died, they also looked at the number of deaths, and it was like a normal amount. It wasn't like, there wasn't, like mass deaths reported like you would have with the plague.
Yeah. Yeah. And then also, and this is gonna seem like, oh, of course this is not true. Of course he felt this way. But we actually don't know anything about Shakespeare's emotional experience of his son. Nothing, right? I mean, this is hard for us to understand, but people did have a different experience of death back in those days. So I'm not saying that people did not grieve over their children. Of course they did, but we have to keep that in mind in terms of just pure history, that we just don't know anything. So everything is just made up in that regard. Everything
Yeah,
about his
we
life.
also don't know, or do we? I thought we also didn't know if his father was abusive in real life. They kind
Yeah,
of extrapolated that from based on like the father figures that he would,
yeah.
create in his plays. So, I mean, it's not a stretch of the imagination to get to, yeah, his dad was probably a dick. Am I allowed
Yeah,
to say that?
I think there's really like about his specific life. I think there's a lot we just don't know about Shakespeare, right? Um, okay, so those are the big things I wanted to just mention. And sorry, there's one last one, and this I think will hopefully lead us into the rest of the conversation. And that is, we know almost nothing about the wife in real, like historically, we know almost nothing about her.
Right.
And so the movie essentially takes that historical knowledge gap and fills in a kind of artistic, mythological, whatever, fills in the gap with myth and art and detail, which, I obviously really enjoyed. But okay, so that was
But
my
not
spiel.
without, I thought something interesting about the wife, though, is that I was reading up on it. So, like I said, she was 26, he was 18. She had a ton of money. He was penniless. Why would she, and
I
considered,
thought his father was fairly prosperous because at a certain point he's able to buy a coat of arms. And I thought he was able to do that not just because he inherited her wealth, but because the business that he inherited from his father wasn't on the skids, but he
Yeah,
was a
so
fairly prosperous merchant, glove
as far as
maker.
as far as I understand, he was, and this is also depicted in the movie that I think is somewhat accurate. Is there's a slight decline at the end of William Shakespeare's father's life. in terms of wealth, but he was for that era. I mean, he's a successful glover,
Yeah.
right? So that's not a nothing job at a trade at that time. That's not,
No, it was enough. He was prosperous enough to, I think buy the theater in essence, become co-owner of
yeah.
the theater or the troupe. I think the King's Men and tour with them and buy a coat of arms. So at some point, I think he had his own money as well. It didn't just come from Anne. But hey,
But not when he
I'm
was
trying to
18.
remember.
I mean,
I'm trying to remember from my tour of Shakespeare's house, which is also a phenomenal experience if you ever get a chance to do it.
Well,
but
I do.
I guess if he were like not a wealthy person, you can kind of extrapolate that a 26-year-old woman, wealthy woman, falling in love with an 18-year-old, for all intents and purposes, new man, that there's something that she saw in him. That was sort of I think I was reading an article that the author, the author who wrote the novel that the movie was based on, that she must have seen his genius. She must have
Maggie
seen
O'Farrell.
something amazing in him that and that made her want to be with him.
I think that's an assumption. I mean, yeah, obviously.
It is.
Which,
Yeah,
by the
It's
way,
not, but it's
which,
not a big
which
assumption
I
to make.
struggled to find, to be honest with you, for the longest time. And we
Okay.
can talk about that at some
Yeah.
point.
Well, I do want to, I guess, because this last thing is, I I don't know that she was wealthy, wealthy. Like, I don't know that. She died wealthy because she was married to William Shakespeare. But as far as I know, I don't know. I don't know. It doesn't seem like she was wealthy. It
And
seems like
I seem to remember.
from
I seem to remember
like,
on the tour as well. At some point after William died, she had her own separate home that burned to the ground. I think the foundations only exist there in Stratford
yeah.
now.
Yeah. So,
Not far from the original house that they lived in, but a
so
significant home.
I think the point is though, that there are these historical facts. There's a lot of things we don't know and we'll probably never know. And then Maggie O'Farrell came in and wrote this story around this unknown and really blew it into a piece of art that I thought was great. Now, Mark, you said something interesting that I think might be a good segue. And this is kind of almost act one, or their love. So did you say you were struggling to find what she saw in him?
Yeah, yeah. Because she's extraordinary from the very beginning. You see her as she's interesting. She's a very independent woman. She borders on being a witch and probably is considered that by the rest of the community. And so
Oh, sure.
independent, original, strong, intuitive, very powerful personality. And Will seems to be sort of following in her wake. He's not the genius, spouting spontaneous verse that I see in Shakespeare in Love. A guy just in the clouds with his muse. He's just a normal guy. He just seems like a normal guy who's in love with somebody who's extraordinary. And I'm just on the fence as to whether that's good or not, because he's sort of my god of writing and theater, and to see him normal sort of bothered me, and to see him outshone by the woman, his wife, as of course she's the main character in it. She's the character. The family is the main character. Sort of bothered me because I didn't see him as an inspirational being. I didn't see her as his muse. I didn't see that fire that I hoped to. And maybe that was just me having issues with seeing my guy reduced to a normal human being. Sorry, but that's the way he looked. He just looked like a normal human being.
Yeah, that's really interesting. So let's talk. Maybe we could start by talking about characterization, particularly in Act One and maybe Act One and Two. So I think of Act One as like their love blossoming. Act Two is the birth of Hamnet and Judah, right? And then it switches into a different, it goes years later, like 11 years later or something. So this movie to me it's not a dialogue heavy movie, right? It's a lot of what's happening is done through the sounds, through the imagery, even through some of the music. Like their first interaction is really unique and really interesting, right? Because he just sees her, he walks over to her, right? He leaves the Latin students and he goes down, and within like I think 4 or 5 lines after getting bit by the bird, he says, you're going to tell me your name when we kiss. And I just thought, you know, um, I don't know. I thought it was such an interesting approach because it isn't developing love in the normal way that we think of it in a movie, where there's like a meet cute and they maybe meet 2 or 3 times and then they fall in love or something. Then it's real love. I mean, it's like this very intense emotional experience. And I thought that is what this movie does over and over again. It portrays really intense emotions, and this is one of the questions I wanted to ask Mark about doing this without words, because like there's one scene in particular. I mean, there's a lot of scenes before the climax that I thought really conveyed information interesting in a visual with not a lot of, you know, with not a lot of words, but a lot of acting and some light imagery. And that was when we find out that Shakespeare he has so much in him and he's being, beaten down by where he lives and that he's under his father's roof and that he's still, so it's in that scene where he's candlelit, he's kind of getting drunk
Mhm.
and he like bangs on the thing, he wakes up the baby and things like that. And he's going like, he's
Oh,
going,
he's doing all the.
and like when you're watching, you're like, what the fuck is going on? And then they don't really tell you, you just know there's something intense happening within Shakespeare's soul right there. And that, Agnes, I thought this was beautiful in my opinion. She was so understanding. Like you could easily play this as like, you don't understand, making this, cliche argument type thing, but she like really understood the depths of his soul, I thought. And the next scene is when they actually kind of explain what just happened, which is when she's talking to her brother about like to convince her brother to go talk to John Shakespeare, as the father, to go let him go sell gloves in London because he's got to get out. He's too big for this small town. That was her observation of him. I just thought that was such a beautiful and unique way of conveying information in cinema. And to Mark is the question about how do you do that as an actor with like 8 words, right?
Well, I mean, my acting mentor, Sandy Meisner, had an expression: an ounce of behavior is worth a pound of words. And what we learn, if good acting is doing, you shouldn't have to say anything. Um, and so it can be a challenge for people who are afraid of that, who think that acting is talking and acting is what you say. But for anybody who understands acting is doing, then you're completely filled up by that moment as an actor. You know what the intention is and you know what you're doing. And that's all that fills you. You don't have to say a word. You don't have to say a word. And sorry, guys. That was an extraordinary scene. However, again, I struggle with seeing one thing and being told another.
Mhm.
Right?
Mm.
I didn't see the genius. I saw the angst. I saw a normal guy. What I saw was a normal guy. Look, I saw in a sense a struggle that I was familiar with. When I was about to be married, what kind of trade-offs would I have to make as an artist, and for somebody who values family, which I value less than work, but my mate values more than my work. How am I gonna, this was a struggle for me. And to hear Agnes say, "You gotta go, you gotta go," that made me cry, because as an actor who is an aspiring artist, to have a mate who isn't in that realm really, but understands that you have a different set in you that you need to satisfy. You have something in you that's different that you need to satisfy. And as opposed to pulling you into a dynamic that you wouldn't fit in, allowing you to be free and to explore and grow. That was a beautiful, beautiful thing to me. But I didn't see, this is a guy who made up language. This is a guy who wrote more words and original words than any other playwright in the English language. I mean, this guy was a genius with words, and you don't see it.
I don't know. I think I want to disagree with that a little bit, Mark.
You go ahead.
I I think that so first of all, I want to ask everybody a question because it's something I already planned on asking, but I think it's opening the door based on what Mark said. But was there anything you guys know? I watch all movies or all shows with subtitles because I'm losing my hearing, and I want to know what people are saying. And there was something that struck me as incredibly intentional. For the first 20 minutes, I didn't think it was intentional. And then another
Well, it
20
has
minutes
to
go
be.
by.
Doesn't have to. It has to be intentional if it's in the film.
Well, so
I
what
agree.
did you notice about, any of you guys watch the subtitles?
No,
With subtitles?
I might
Yeah.
have. So I've seen
Did
it
you watch it in
twice.
subtitles with the subtitles?
I don't
I
think so.
think the first time I watched it, yes,
There
but
was something incredible
I
that
don't
I
remember.
noticed
Okay.
when I started with the subtitles is that he is never referred to by his name until 1 hour and 36 minutes go by, and it's at the Globe Theater, and that's the very first time you hear the word William, or Shakespeare. And I thought that is
That's a good point.
intentional.
Oh
And
yeah,
the reason why is they want you to see him
as a
like a
man.
regular guy.
Yes,
They
of course.
want
I
you to
know.
see
I
him
know.
like a
Yeah.
Yeah,
regular guy. But what I saw the
yeah.
genius in the making, and it was that very
Hmm.
first, not the very first scene, but it was the second scene when he is with her in the forest, and she asks her to tell him a story, and he tells her the
Orpheus.
story of Orpheus and
Yeah, I know. I was
Eurydice.
supposed to feel that, but I didn't. I'm sorry.
I felt
I
it.
I
didn't.
felt it. I
Jennifer, what
fell in
did you
love.
Sorry.
feel?
Yeah, Jennifer, that's a good one. I
He
fell in love.
felt like a regular guy to me.
Yeah.
And yeah, he did. I did not see what, other than like pure sexual attraction, what she latched onto until you're talking about that scene and you realize, oh, she somehow has absorbed his genius and understands he needs this. But we didn't get to see how that came about.
Is
I don't feel like we did.
I don't want this to just detract from the fact that I absolutely loved the movie because I did. I thought it was a
Yeah.
great film, but I didn't see in the telling of Orpheus a genius. I didn't see it. I wasn't blown away by picking a myth out and telling it in a way, not in an original way, not in verse, not in something that you'd feel would come out of
Mm,
Shakespeare's mouth, but as a normal guy telling us a bedtime story to his friend or reading something to his wife. And it didn't seem extraordinary. I didn't see genius. Let's just put it that way. In Shakespeare in Love, which is qualitatively, a different genre and an
yeah,
entirely different
that's more of a
sensibility.
comedy.
It is, but Shakespeare is he's dynamic.
Yeah.
He's huge, and his you see the muse inspiring him, and I wanted to see a hint of that in that scene when he
Ooh,
told the story. I was honestly disappointed.
really? Huh.
Yes.
I
Well,
I saw this more as like a
I've read
becoming.
every Shakespeare play that's
I
ever
thought The
been
Becoming
written.
too.
I've read
I
I
every Shakespeare
I
play that's
think
ever been written, and I can't.
yeah.
So it killed me, to be honest with you. I was like, "That's it."
oh.
I was like, "That's it." I
So
don't know.
I
Is
think
it
you're.
not
Honestly, I
possible
think you're
though
both
that
are
he
right.
could have he wasn't born, he didn't spring forth from the head of Zeus, and he became the William Shakespeare that you know and love, and he
Yes,
wasn't always
yes,
that person, but you
yes.
still didn't see that spark.
I
Did
didn't
you
see the
ever
scene
see it in the movie, in the entire movie,
at the end. At the
at the
end,
play?
at the very end, um, it came together for me. Uh,
They were using
and
actual
we could
words.
talk about we could talk
Yeah.
about why that was, but I didn't see it to begin with.
Okay.
I
I
liked the
also, but
dynamic. I like the dynamic, the pull, between a man who has to be an artist. He has something inside him that has to come out. Otherwise, he dies. I mean, that's the way it is if you're a real aspiring artist. A woman who understands that and makes I don't want to say sacrifice, but she loves him and she loves him as he is. And and eventually that becomes a terrible dynamic for the two of them and winds up becoming a terrible rift between the two of them. That's beautiful drama. I love that narrative. It's super rife with so much passion. but I didn't see the genius. I'm sorry, I
What
didn't.
did
He
you
was a
think
good, he was a
about
very good actor though. I
what
didn't
did
see the genius.
what did you think about the
Yeah, he's great.
scene where they're rehearsing Hamlet, the play, and it's the scene with Ophelia and
Yes,
Hamlet,
I'm like,
there I saw it.
and
that's where it happens. That's the beginning for
that's
sure.
when you because
Yeah.
that for me was like there's Shakespeare,
He's
Yes,
in
right?
London though, but he's
yes,
in
he is.
London.
But I
Yeah.
needed to see the spark in that story with
Ooh.
Orpheus. I needed to see something poetic. Even if, look, there's a couple of plays of Shakespeare that I hate, and they don't even seem like they're written by Shakespeare, to be honest with you. Like I'm like Titus Andronicus. I'm like, what? Those some of those plays I don't like. But I want to see a hint of the man that wrote Hamlet. I want to see the hint of Romeo and Juliet, Winter's Tale. I want to see a hint of that poetry and genius. I didn't see
Mm.
it in the telling of that story. But by the
That's what
time
it's
he's
supposed to be.
incensed
Yeah.
and driven by passion and grief and driving them, that's the way geniuses do drive you. I could see that happening because I've worked with people like that. They're just dynamic machine. That's the Shakespeare that I wanted from the beginning.
Well,
But
my understanding of Chloe Zhao is that she comes from I don't remember where, China. She's Asian, I believe. She comes from another country where she was not raised on Shakespeare, and she talks about being in interviews confused by him a little bit, and um, so I think Mark, what you're saying is there's probably a lot of truth in that, where that's not her focus, and she
yeah,
probably doesn't know how to depict him, and you're right that I see both of you. I
And
think I
for the
agree with both
benefit
of
of
you.
everybody who may not know, Chloe Zhao is the director
Sorry, she's director and she wrote
and
the
writer.
and the co-writer.
she's co-writer with Maggie O'Farrell, who also wrote the book.
Yep.
So yeah, Mark, you've kind of convinced me a little bit that that is one thing I see. I did like those scenes. I think what the author's trying to do is, because I actually don't think what the point. I mean, I don't think Shakespeare is at all the main character. I think Agnes is the main character, right, of
Right.
this movie and of this
Yes.
story. And as far
Yes.
as I have not read the book, but as far as I understand, the book is mostly interior monologue from, or interior perspective from Agnes's point of view. I think that's the most of the movie or the book. But I agree with what you're saying. Like, if you still should have some depiction, something. I mean, I think the way they tried to do it. Let me just say this is, and it was a little off to me. This part of it was just him kind of by himself reading some Shakespeare lines. Like he'll say when he's falling in love with Agnes, he starts quoting
But
Romeo and Juliet. Did you catch that?
yeah, I know, but that seemed weird. But
It was a
this is
little
a
bit
guy
out of
who used
place.
this is a guy who used to have like rap battles with other great writers in pubs, right? In public houses. They would have these magnificent battles. Now, there's a guy who does YouTube, who does these spontaneous raps where he has people pick out words, and
I've
he'll
seen that
remember.
guy. He's
He's
great.
that's
Yeah,
Shakespeare.
yeah,
That's
yeah,
Shakespeare. So
yeah.
Shakespeare would do that kind of stuff. He'd have these war of words with people that were supposedly phenomenal. That's that guy. That's the guy I want. I want that guy bubbling out in the forest, bubbling up something beautiful.
Yeah.
Not a derivative, not an old myth, pulling it up to tell somebody a story. Tell the story. Yeah, let's
And
let's
and
let's
Jax, what you're saying, so I agree with you, Mark. Now, more Jax, what you're saying, I think, is that it's a becoming story.
I
But
felt like it was a becoming
oh, it's definitely
becoming Will
that.
Shakespeare
Yeah,
story.
I think that's definitely what they were going for. But maybe that's another historical thing they took away, like that, because it's true. Like something I do know about poets, and I don't know as much about William Shakespeare in his earlier years, but a lot of poets, yeah, they're, especially at these caliber, like he's writing Latin, he's teaching Latin, I think at 18, 19, 20 years old or whatever, but he had mastered it probably by the age of like 14, right? And Greek and
yeah,
Latin. And then
yeah.
they're doing all kinds of like I've read poetry from William Wordsworth when he was a boy, and it's like phenomenal, right? And it's like, holy crap, this guy wrote this at like 14. And
Yeah.
so
A
I
genius with
understand where
words,
Mark's coming
a
from in that
genius with
regard.
words is going to demonstrate
It's
that
not, it
genius
doesn't
with
come out of
words.
nowhere.
You're
Yeah,
right.
like
He's a
it may not
genius with
be
words.
as developed as his later work, but Yeah, so
I
I
get
agree with
that.
that.
I can get on
I
board
didn't
with
want to
that
feel
too.
like Shakespeare would be on the beach with me having a beer, and sometimes I felt like that with this guy, right? I mean,
Oh,
good,
I didn't feel
fantastic
that,
actor.
but
No, but I know, fantastic actor.
yeah,
But you know,
yeah.
all the scenes, I loved all of the scenes in this film, but it just fell flat to me when I was supposed to see the seed of genius. I didn't see it because
I
it
wonder
can't
if
help but
that
come
too
out.
was intentional. I wonder if they really, and that's
Oh,
why they didn't name his name until you get to
Look,
the play.
look,
yeah,
when I see the actor's studio, which I don't know if you guys ever watched the actor's studio with
yeah,
Mr. Lipton, right? The great thing
yeah,
about that was that you had your gods up there, at least for actors like me. You had gods up there, and they freely showed their feet of clay. They showed their humanity in a way that made them and their work accessible, and that's tremendously liberating for actors to see, because you build up a notion in your mind of what this great genius actor is all about. And when you see him in reality, you discover, well, he's just a human being like me with many of the same issues. It's now achievable. I felt like they were going for that, perhaps, with Shakespeare. He's just a guy like you and me, and well, I understood his life as a struggling artist. Simply as that, not Shakespeare, the genius, the god of theater, but as a struggling artist trying to juggle contradictory, sometimes conflicting values, a family and his desire to do his art, which is modern and carries over to our day, and is very
yeah.
resonates very well with me.
Let me maybe sum it up this way or put it this way. I haven't read the book, so I'm only going to refer to the movie, but the movie is trying to use visual, like all these elements other than words, and they have at the center of, or part of the center of this movie is the greatest wordsmith to ever live. And so that is just a weird contradiction almost. But the focus of the director, like that is the intention, so I like one thing I know about the casting process was all of it was put around, once they found Pedro Pascal, was around the chemistry of the two actors. Like that was everything. That was like all they were looking for, is being able to deliver these lines and have intense, chemistry with Pedro Pascal.
Wait, I'm sorry, Pedro
No,
Pascal?
No, no,
what?
Paul,
It's not Pedro Pascal.
Paul Mescal. I always do that.
I was like,
Paul,
I'm
Paul
like, are
Mescal.
we talking about The Last of Us now?
Yeah, I always mix them up. I don't know why. They even acted in a movie together, and that's part
Oh,
of it.
that's funny.
Yeah, they were in Gladiator too. But anyway, this is a movie that uses visual language really well, and that's what this movie. I think that's the focus, and I want to shift to Agnes a little bit. So we have our grief. We've put our grief, or not our grief, our grievances about the wordsmithing abilities of young Mr. Shakespeare in this depiction of him, which he's not, he even has a line when he's first meeting her, like, I'm not good when talking to people. He says something like that. I remember when he says like, he says that to her, I'm not great with talking to people. I think the implication is that because I write. And of course, that's not quite the case. Actually, a lot of people wrote his plays later. Like he would just kind of scribble off lines and tell them what to say and stuff. And later, that's where the folios come from. So another ahistorical aspect of him, I think, is the idea that he didn't know how to talk to people. Do you guys remember that? Do you know what I'm talking about? Like when before he says the Orpheus thing, he's like, I'm not good with talking to people. It's like, that's ahistorical. He definitely was. But let's move to Agnes a little bit. So we first see her, and what I think is, a very beautiful shot of her, like a drop of blood in this forest. And there's so much about her, which is obviously the colors they're choosing. She's dirty a lot. She's in the dirt. Like literally there's just dirt all over.
There's
her.
always dirt under her nails.
Dirt.
Always.
Yeah, always.
And
yeah.
what I love too is that Shakespeare always has his writing hand is black.
Is all black.
From ink. Those are really good touches.
Great little touches. Yeah. I always thought like, was his finger dead? Like
I did too, but then I was like, oh.
Yeah, it's from his writing. Yeah, it must have been yeah. And yeah, so she, is coming from, she does hawking, right? She like it's not falconry, it's hawk, right? So it's a little, I
It
guess it's
just made
different.
me think of the SNL skit, the falconer.
Well, I don't
So,
know that skit.
oh my God, it was a what was this? It was a Will Ferrell skit. Never mind, it'll detract from the story.
And yeah, so she like literally comes out of the woods. There's a story about her being a witch. She has an intuitive feel for diseases. Like she knows when the plague is coming. Did you notice that? Like she sees the bees and she's like the bee. She has all, and she, her mother taught her herbs, and she's, one of the first things she touches Shakespeare is she kind of tries to heal him with some herbs she got from the ground and things like that. Um, I
She wants
really,
to have
yeah,
birth in the woods.
oh yeah. What did you think of that scene?
And she was wearing a white pajamas when she woke up with contractions, but by the time she got out to the woods, she was wearing this red dress that just looked like the color of blood as
Mhm.
she was trying to give birth. I was so, I don't know, just so visceral the way they shot that. That was
And,
beautiful.
yeah, it was really intense, and the she always talks about her having visions, like she knows she's going to have two children at her death. She's afraid that Shakespeare's going to be washed down the river when the river banks flood, and she has that
Hmm.
fear of it. So she has like all these visions. Now, who else in the movie has visions of a different kind?
Hamnet.
Hamnet has some visions, and I
Hamnet
think
has this.
Shakespeare has visions. They're just different. So one thing I
What
saw
are Shakespeare? What were his visions? I must have missed that.
Hamlet. So
No,
I
I.
think
Oh, he
no,
had visions of
Hamlet is, yeah. No, well, he's always telling his words. So he like goes at, there's that scene where he goes to the water's edge and he does
Yeah,
to not to be, like maybe he'll kill himself or something. But
right.
what I'm saying is one of the things I noticed in the thematic play of this is it almost was like it was going from this old world witch type of supernatural world, move in how they experience life, how they experience emotions, and moving into the world of Shakespeare. And I thought, I'm trying to avoid the climax as much, but even the way she moved into that world, and that full experience was a really interesting part of that. What I saw is the trajectory of that thematic arc.
I want to like touch though on what Jennifer was saying about the birth scene because I think that
Please,
that
yeah.
was really I wouldn't call it pivotal, but it was extremely organic, for lack of a better word. I hate to say that, but it's shot from overhead a lot. And you see all the different positions that she gets into. And then the last position that she gets into is she's like clinging to the vines while she's
Mhm.
having this baby. And I just had this like, the thing that came into my mind was Gaia, like Mother Earth.
Mm.
Like she is like so one with the earth.
Uh-huh.
And I just like I mean it was beautiful. It was beautiful and terrible and terrifying at the same time because
Mhm.
she gets up in the middle of the night. She knows that she's in contractions. She's not telling anybody about it, or she's in labor, and she's like, "I'm going to the woods to have my baby." And
Yeah.
like who does that? Like literally, who does that?
Yeah. Because she knows she has, she's very deeply in touch with nature and things of that nature. Things
And
like
then
that.
she's devastated when her mother-in-law prevents her from going out to the woods to have the twins.
Yeah.
And that's when she sees the vision of or that's when she fears the river and Will dying in the river. But I just that kind of imagery it was like so powerful and so well done, I thought.
Yeah. And with that first birthing scene with the older daughter, that was, there was a moment when she has her scream, and then it cuts hard.
Yeah.
And and it goes to black, and then the next scene, it's like a couple seconds in black, I think, and then it cuts to her holding the baby, and then Paul Mescal and the brother come to her. And I thought it was a really, again, great use of visuals, sounds. It was like this big crescendo, and then it cuts, and you're left with everything else without having to see all of it. Like
Right.
you, you
Yeah. Also
felt it.
practical too.
Yeah.
Like you don't want to see the afterbirth or cutting of the
Yeah.
cord.
But you felt it all about.
Yeah.
I mean, this is a deeply emotional movie that I think they're using acting very well, and light touches, or like light touches, but these intense moments to kind of express that with very little dialogue. I mean, I'd love to count the words, especially the non-Shakespeare spoken words. I bet it's very little.
Well, it'll be more words than a John Wick movie, but
Sure. Okay. That's probably true. Action, but I mean, this is a high drama,
yeah, I
or
know.
like a big drama, and that's not typical. Dramas tend to be kind of wordy.
Yeah.
Yeah,
Yeah.
and that's I think one of the interesting things about it, that a story about the greatest wordsmith of all time doesn't rely on words at all.
Yeah. Yeah. And so that's what I was trying to say about. I think it's like, to the best of Chloe and Margot Farrell, that all respect to them. What they're trying to do is show this story of moving from the supernatural world of Agnes into what Shakespeare has to offer. So I did think of it as, I do see it as a great, paean, homage to Shakespeare and what he could do, and things that I don't know if you guys agree with that, but
Well,
Yeah.
so now oh, go ahead, Jen.
I was just going to say, yeah, I can kind of see that. And even though, she's very much a mystic, and
oh yeah,
and that's not necessarily something we all really like. I like the fact that she felt things. She knew things were going to be wrong, but she was wrong sometimes about it. And I don't know if you're, like she thought that the two people at her death would be her two children, and then she thought the two people were going to be like the mother-in-law and the midwife, and she kept being wrong, but she still was feeling it. She was right about her son, but she didn't know what. I don't know. I just thought that character really represented um that kind of thinking and feeling. So yeah, if that was a very more common in the old world, then the juxtaposition of what Shakespeare was, which was, brought us into the, I don't know, is it considered part of the Renaissance? I guess it is.
yeah.
Um, yeah, like, and an enlightening. That's pretty cool. I hadn't really thought about it like that, but I think that's really cool.
Well, that's just a view I have. I don't know if you guys agree, but it seems like that's where the movie is trying to
Hmm.
convey, is this idea of, not to say that she let go of it, but it's like two different ways. I mean, obviously two different ways of grieving is really big, but also just two different ways of experiencing the world, of, moving on, of catharsis, of all these things that art can do. Maybe that's what we should talk about next. We don't have to save that for last. We can use that to juice up the middle a little bit, because it is the biggest part of this movie, I think.
Well,
Is Go ahead, Jax. You have something
no,
to
I
say
was
about
just gonna
this?
say I want to kind of touch on something that Jen said, that in terms of like her being a mystical person. I didn't see
Okay.
her so much as a mystical person. And one of the reasons why I think is, like I said, I just saw her as Gaia, as like Earth. But one of the reasons, there was this scene when, gosh, I can't remember who she was talking to, but she was hearkening back to her own mother's death. And somebody, it might have been the mother-in-law who was saying something to her about God or praying or something like that. And
Yeah, mother-in-law.
she actually said, after my mother died, I
Yeah.
can't remember the exact words, but after my mother died, I said I would continue going to your church, but I promised I would never speak in it. Like that to me was very significant in terms of, your God didn't do anything to save my mother. And
Well, I don't
and
mean the mystic like a religious mystic. I think more like a witch,
like witchery or
Yeah.
supernatural, like seer, foretelling
seer,
the,
that kind of mystic. That's
yeah.
what I.
Yeah.
And but I can kind of almost just, I kind of put that off to mother's intuition too. Like there's things that
Yeah.
moms get that,
Yeah.
like they just get feelings about stuff, and then their kid calls or whatever, and there's just weird feelings that, like, You do. And I'm not trying to be mystical or anything like that, but there is just sometimes you just get this feeling and then you're like, oh my
Yeah,
God.
for
Makes
sure.
sense.
I liked that Agnes. You can see Agnes in a composite of a lot of Shakespeare's female characters too,
Mm.
particularly when Ophelia goes off the deep end and starts giving the herbs to Claudius
Oh.
and Gertrude. She's naming the very herbs that Agnes would talk about for healing, and the very same properties that they
Mm.
have come out of Ophelia. And
Oh, that's such a good thought.
I
That's
can
such a good insight.
I can tag a few of Shakespeare's female characters in Agnes. I can see that, and that's one of the things I liked about her character as being so gigantic, almost I don't almost a goddess, magical in a way. There was she was an original, and I see that magic, you know, coursing through a number of Shakespeare's plays and female characters. So I liked that I saw that connection in there. That's how Agnes struck me. I mean, she's the main character of the story, and so
Sure.
she's bigger than Shakespeare in this, intentionally so. You
Yeah.
know,
Would
Which,
it
yeah.
not make sense then for if we're talking about and again I haven't read the book, but would it not make sense then if the story originally was in her POV and the movie is from her POV, would it not make sense that she doesn't see Shakespeare as the genius that he truly is
but
quite
she
yet?
does though. But
I
she
think she
does.
Quite,
does. Yeah.
but she
But
she
I need to see it
does.
too.
Yeah, you're right. You need to see what she sees, and what you're saying is you didn't see what she saw.
I didn't. And all the ink on his finger aside, I didn't see it. So, that's a great touch, by the way. And that might have been his touch. That might have been the actor's choice to have ink always on his finger. Because that shows us what we're not seeing. What we don't see often. We only get glimpses of him writing, small little glimpses. But that's not enough for me to plant the seed of the genius later on, or to confirm Agnes's belief that this guy is really worth her giving up her husband for, which is essentially what she has to do, what any wife of an aspiring artist has to do.
Well, she does just kind of see things. And I think we're supposed to accept that sight in a sense. And, she even has an argument with her brother who, he says, like, why would you want to be with a pale academic or something like that, right? And she says he holds worlds within him or something. And, that you just don't, she doesn't say this, but the implication is like, what, you just don't see them yet, right? And her brother sees it at the end. Like he's like the one who's keeping her there at the beginning, right? When
Right.
he's like, wait, I want to see this, right? And I think again, that's what the film, and I don't know about the book, but that's what the film is seeming to depict is we're supposed to be in her world, seeing things through her eyes. I mean,
Hey, yeah, maybe that's true. Jesus said a prophet is never a prophet in his own home. And maybe we're supposed to see that everybody else might not see Shakespeare's genius, but she does. And then you see it revealed in the end. That's sort of interesting. Maybe that's the take they were going for. Because
yeah,
she is big enough, and her character is gigantic enough, and it's established. Her wisdom and her intuitiveness are established enough that you can buy what she says.
well,
Right.
I just think it would be a different movie if Shakespeare is Shakespeare at the beginning with all of that hundreds of years of connotations and meaning and just inspiration for all of us. If he is that at the beginning, it can't help but take away from that idea of hers that she's seeing something that other people aren't seeing yet, that it's the nascent version of it. I just think that it's at least possible that they discuss that in the writer's room. So I wanted to ask you guys about the Hamnet plague sequence, like the Hamnet going into Judith's bed, and what you thought, what you were thinking at the time, what were you experiencing in that moment, if anything?
Who wants to just, everybody's quiet, so I guess I'll
Yeah.
go. Well, Doom.
Mhm.
because we know how the story ends. I mean, we know that Hamnet has to die. And so when he, I guess, graciously and out of a deep love for his twin says, I'll take her sickness upon myself. Um, you know it's going to happen. uh, and you feel that sense of dread, and also a sense of deep sadness for the fact that he loves his sister so much that he's willing to die for her in her place. I love those kinds of stories in a way. Throughout, shows himself to be a beautiful, innocent, wonderful kid who opens up William's life. You know, that's
Yeah,
you really see his William's humanity through Hamnet.
and he has
Wasn't
a. Go ahead.
Sorry, wasn't part of the lines and what he said at his own deathbed, when he was telling Judith, oh, the grim, like hide here, he'll take my place, or I'll take your place. But when he was also kind of in his hallucinations, and he was saying, I'll be brave, I am brave, I'll be brave, Father. And didn't that make it into actual Hamlet? Wasn't
I'll be
there?
brave.
I thought that there was because I did watch Hamlet prior to this again. I watched it again, and I even watched the I watched
The Franco Zeffirelli version.
I watched the Mel Gibson version, and then I
Franco
also
Zeffirelli.
went into the Kenneth Branagh version and looked at some critical scenes just to compare. And I thought it wasn't the to be or not to be speech, but it was something about being. I wish I could have done some research on that prior, but I literally just watched
I've read the
Hamlet
whole play
today.
1,000 times. I mean, if you can tell me specifically
I thought he
what
was
scene you're
saying,
talking about.
"Must I be brave?" Like where he was. It was like one of his. And it was early on in the. It was like Act One or Act Two. It was shortly after he saw his father's ghost. Of "Must I be brave?" or "I'll be brave. I'll be brave, Father."
Yeah, it's likely. I don't remember those specific words, but it's likely.
I mean, he
But
says something of that effect, probably not those exact words, but yeah, he has to call courage, and that's his father, his ghost, kind of is impelling him to go do this action that he's not quite. He's a little nervous to do, right? Like
Right.
it's
And
a
then
big
we've
deal.
got Hamnet, as he's walking through what becomes the scene at the Globe Theater, right? What becomes the background scene at the Globe Theater with all the trees and the forest. He's walking. Hamnet is dying, and he's walking through, and he finds the doorway that eventually becomes the doorway that his ghost of a father comes through. Um,
What
so I thought it was a really
I think
interesting
you're right,
parallel.
because it's
Well, there
there's a
definitely always are those comparisons that Hamlet is finding between he and Fortinbras and Laertes, where he thinks he's a bit cowardly
mm,
because he's not acting on impulse, right? So he does castigate himself a lot for having no courage because he sees the example of Fortinbras acting for his father. He sees Laertes doing the same impulsively for the death of his father, while he cannot make that same commitment to that kind of action without knowing for sure that Claudius is the killer. And he doesn't like that part of himself.
yeah.
Um,
I mean, there's a whole monologue. What is it? The what is a work piece of work is a man speech. I
mhm.
think maybe in there. I don't know. So
Mm. It's not in there,
uh,
but yeah,
which one is it? I don't know. I'll have
it's
to look at it.
probably it's probably oh, what a rogue and peasant slave am I?
Yeah.
It's
Okay.
probably post to the players when the players come on and he sees the player cry for Hecuba, and he can't he wonders at the ability of this person to muster up those feelings over something imaginary, why he has this task put in front of him by his father and he can't seem to make it work. So he
So
calls himself a coward in that speech.
yeah, I mean, so one of the I wanted to talk about something before this. What we're covering is a really big topic, which is this issue of the imagination and real life and that kind of oscillation between the two. Especially that's a parallel between what's in Hamlet, the
Mhm.
play, and the whole play, not even just what's in the movie, but I mean what Mark just talked about, in the sense of a big theme of Hamlet is this idea of the grief of the mother is not true, like because she got married too fast, and there's all this stuff about her grief is not real in Hamlet, or he's very accusatory of her in that way, because she got
Yeah.
married 2 months later, things of that, and it's like, this isn't like, what are you doing? How could, if you love the greatest, this is the greatest king, he's the best there ever was, and you married some new dude in 2 months, right? And that's also something that's part of what we see as a theme in Hamnet, right? Is just the different ways that people grieve, how they show that grief, what they do, the actions they take. And the, the thing I was trying to bring up with the scene between Hamnet and Judith of taking this on is there's one thing that I noticed in the whole play was this breathiness. There was a lot of breath in the story. Did you, in the movie, like in the love, when they're, kissing, when they're out in the forest, there's a lot of breath work. You could hear it, and you could hear it there too. He even says, breathe with me. Right. And there's just a lot of this transference of spirit. And I think that's part of that the movie is trying to convey. And I don't know if you guys noticed any of that, but
I hadn't even, no, that's the first I've,
I mean, their
are
faces
you
are
talking
close to
about
each other all the
physical
time.
breathing?
All the
Like,
time, yeah. Like their faces, like at least 5 or 6 times, their faces are right next to each other, and I can almost smell their bad breath because it's medieval times. Right? Like they're just right there.
I did wonder at that very thing, actually, because of their proximity to each other.
I did too,
The
but
one
maybe
thing we
that was
don't
on
get at this,
purpose.
the one thing we don't get at this age at watching cinema is what the smells were like at
Yeah.
those times.
Well, I actually don't think they noticed bad breath, because bad breath was, I think, invented
Normal.
after gum and
Maybe like
good
that,
breath.
maybe
But I'm
that's
just
like
saying,
the,
like the breathiness was so loud. To me, it was just so loud, or so much breath, and nobody noticed it but me. Okay,
I didn't notice that.
and
I
'cause
didn't, but Mark brought something up that, or wait, maybe it was you, Kirk, that brought something up about the, oh, hold on, I can't lose my thought now, about losing, how Hamlet, in the play, how Hamlet felt about his mother marrying so quickly,
yeah.
so soon after the death of her husband. Did you, it literally just showed up in my brain right now, that might be a parallel to that scene where Agnes loses her mother. If you remember that, when her mother dies, and they're cleaning her, they're, putting the white sheet over her and everything, and then Agnes comes in and, wants to see her mother, but before that they kind of whisper to the father, to Agnes's father, better to marry somebody very quickly so that she won't remember who her mother really was. And I wonder now, just that you brought that up, that seems like a weird parallel. That,
Yeah, that's probably part of it. I mean, it's possible. Yeah. I think the thing I was trying to point out was just the way that people grieve differently in their different experiences,
yeah,
which I think is a big theme of the story. But yeah, you're probably right that, and then the Agnes saw this and she's like, where's my mother? Because they were thinking that they might be too young to really recognize or something like that, which is a kind of an odd thing to say, because she's like 9 years old or 10 years old or something.
well, they didn't know psychology of children at the time. They
I
really,
guess, but still, like maybe if she was like 3 years old or something, but I don't know. Anyway, but yeah, I think all that's definitely relevant. They're definitely pulling a lot of the ideas from Hamlet and putting it in the movie, I think. But also Hamlet speaks to so much. Like there's so much in it that you could probably write, 10 different novels like this from different perspectives and still
Yeah.
make it apply to Hamlet in so many different ways.
For sure.
So, the reason I'm bringing up the breathiness, the plague. So the plague's a big deal. There's a lot of wind. There's a lot of nature and its reflections on life. I think there's always, some reflections on life. Obviously we know that the that the king in Hamlet is poisoned, and poisoned in the ear, and in the case of Hamnet, he's killed by a plague that comes in, which is a disease that comes from other people. Apparently, I edited a video for Amish Adalja. He's an infectious disease physician, and he was in his video. He's saying that this is a very accurate depiction of the plague, except for the speed, the incubation period for Hamnet is not.
Oh, I have a
That's too
disagreement with that
fast.
because I watched that video. There
You have a
was,
disagreement with the infectious disease physician?
yes, I do, because he didn't watch, he
What are
didn't
you? What are
watch
you,
it.
Robert Kennedy Jr.?
I am. He did. It's all a sham. No, he didn't watch Hamnet with as much of a critical eye as I think we would. Maybe he can disagree with me. That's fine. But something I noticed immediately. And this is before I watched the video. Something I noticed immediately when I was watching Hamnet is that Hamnet wakes up in bed and he has this feeling that something is going, like he wants to go check on his sister, but he wakes up in bed with a sweat.
Oh, so you think he already had
I
it?
think he already had it. I think the incubation period already happened because he shared a room with his sister, for God's sakes.
Yeah.
And it was, Amesh is completely correct that once it gets into your lungs, then it is
Yeah, maybe.
it
Maybe.
travels by air. But no, they specifically put him in a sweat when he woke up from bed. It was like a day before or something. So you could or it was like the morning of or the evening, but he already had sweat going on. And it's, I believe it was meant to be a fever. And so
Okay.
that took like the
I could buy
mystical
that.
part of it out for me
Yeah.
in terms of, because I was like, oh, kid's already got a fever. He's going to die. It doesn't matter if he gets like all up close with her and breathes her air. He's already got it.
Yeah. And then they just used that as one scene to depict the emotional aspect of
But I feel like it was very
the
intentional
okay.
that they,
Yeah.
like very technically accurately intentional that they showed him with the beads of sweat on his forehead.
Yeah. And we don't know how long she was sick for. Like we don't see every day if it was probably multiple days.
Right.
And they don't show like here's day one, here's day two, here's day
Right.
three. We just see the progression. All right, I can dig that. That makes sense. Good catch. But yeah, so I thought it was a good depiction of all these historical accurate moments in the play. And again, it's just all about like the breathing in, breathing out, that transference more
Right.
is what I mean. Not just the breathing,
Oh,
the
that's where you're getting your
transference.
breathiness from. Okay, I get it
Yeah.
now.
Yeah, it's the transference. Well, it's the same thing even when they're in and they're in love at the beginning. It's very, just breathy on each other. Transference also. And I just thought that was part of the movie. I don't know. Because at the end, William Shakespeare breathes life into this story that is,
Yeah.
echoes for immortality and brings his son alive forever. Right.
Mhm.
Um, okay, so let's just talk about the ending sequence and art and immortality and all the good stuff. I think this is the main juice of the play, the movie, right? Is that ending sequence. So who wants to dig into it first? I think we all have a lot to say, I imagine, but who wants to
Why don't
Well,
you
first?
go
I
ahead?
Jennifer?
have probably the least to say because I'm not a Shakespeare scholar, and I, I mean, I know like the pieces that she picked to show, and I mean Chloe, show of the Hamlet play related to how the main character Agnes would respond to it. And it was beautiful, but I feel like I'm like excited to hear what you guys are going to say who've studied Shakespeare and know it in greater detail.
Well, what was your experience though of that whole sequence? Like, do you
Well,
remember what you were thinking along the way? Because I could
well,
explain a couple things I was thinking along the way.
well, I just liked how she came in and she was rejecting it, like her little,
Mhm.
like she didn't want to see it because it was just so horrible that he used their son's name in this tragedy. And then, then when the character came out, Hamlet, she wanted to turn, but her brother was like, keep an open mind, which is what was said way back in the beginning. So I liked how they tied that back in. I love when things pay off. And so she
That was
did.
good.
And then I do remember some of the language, and I don't know if it was Ophelia, but I remember the language about gardening. I was like, oh, he's bringing in the gardening that she used to do into his story. I loved it. She began to see the beauty and how he had dealt with his grief through his art, and he was trying to also immortalize their son. And I thought at the end it was really about, oh, it's just like a light bulb went on. He's immortalized him. He'll live forever now because it's such an incredible play. That's really what I took from it.
And
But
are
I
you going to
feel like
go?
my experience is like at a very shallow level compared to what you guys, all three of you, probably will be able to,
What
what
is
you'll be able to take
interesting,
it.
just would you go see Hamlet now? Are you going to go watch it?
Well, I'm definitely not going to watch the version that
Well, we
Jack
can talk
says
about
she'll
that
never
later.
get.
I'd like to mention
Get her.
the Mel Gibson versus the Branagh.
I
The
read
only
it
reason,
in high
but
school.
I'm just curious about would you go read it or see it
I
now?
read it in high school, but I think, yeah, like now, it will definitely have a different perspective as,
Yeah.
as I lived
I
past
hope
my
you do.
life. Yeah.
I hope it gets more people to read Hamlet, the movie.
Yeah.
I think it's
Yeah.
something people should study and really read.
Hmm.
Just everybody should do that. But so if I can say a couple things about this. So the experience was just, as I said, unexpected. I thought it was, at the beginning of the movie, these two characters are coming together in such a almost mystical, magical way. Very few words. It's all emotion. It's all chemistry. It's movement. It's, I'm going to kiss you and get your name and kiss. And I want to be handfasted to you. And he's like pacing around and it says very little. And she's like, come with me. And they have sex because that's a way to, um, um, and so yeah, so there was a lot of this coming together at the beginning, and then after the death of Hamnet, it was this pulling apart, right? And it happened even before that because she had to let him go to London. She was very understanding, but over time, this kind of shifted, and he's not there for the death of he's not there for the birth of their son or the death of their son, right? So he's not there for those things, and that really her understanding starts to collapse, especially as she starts getting these self-doubts about herself because her visions are wrong. She thought Judith, because remember Judith is born stillborn, or she comes out stillborn and then comes back alive. And so she thought Hamnet was going to be the safe one, but it was the other way around.
Which I
So
thought that was a really interesting take on. You were talking earlier, Kirk, about the world view of death at that time. And I thought that was a really interesting scene where the midwife is so quick to be like, yeah, this baby's dead. Gonna go
well, yeah,
bury
they
it.
did.
Gonna go
There's not a
bury it
lot
in
you
the
can.
yard. You can have plenty more, And they were like, yeah, not breathing, dead.
Well, there wasn't much you could do at that time. So there's all this coming together, and then it started pulling apart the two characters. She's really mad at him, and there's really hard scenes to watch because the character Shakespeare in his home does not express himself verbally at all. Like very little. I mean, this is, I think, what Mark was mentioning. I mean, he's in this moment. I mean, this is years later. This is when he's at the height of Shakespeare-ness, in a sense, and his wife is berating him, and he just says, "You did nothing wrong. You did everything you could. You did everything." That's all the words he says, really, and he doesn't say anything. And there's a separation between them spiritually, and then at the end, there's this. And she doesn't even know. She thinks he's writing a comedy.
Right?
And then like the mother-in-law, the person she's most disconnected from, not her
No,
mother,
stepmother.
her
Her stepmother.
stepmother, it's most disconnected from, they don't like each other, or she doesn't like her stepmother. She gives this thing and then she unrolls it and it says her son's name, and just the look on her face, like, how could he do that? Right. And she's so angry at him. She hates him. They have to go and see it. They go up in there and it's like, to me, it was such a fascinating story because she doesn't even understand, why is he living in a hovel like this? Like, he's the richest man in Stratford, or he's got the biggest house in Stratford. He's living like, she doesn't know anything about her husband for the last several years, right? She knows nothing. In fact, they did this so well that went over into unbelievability for me, in the sense that she like when she goes into a play, it's like, really, the wife of Shakespeare has never been to a play. Like, it really felt like that she had never ever attended a play before, and she's like shocked by everything.
Well, okay,
Now,
so
I thought it
here's
was,
my
by the way, I
question
think it was great the way
for
she
the
did that, but I'm just saying it was just a little bit of unbelievability.
where does
Uh,
Hamlet fall? This is what I don't know. Like, I have read every Shakespeare. I did like a 2 year course in London over it, but I cannot remember where Hamlet comes in the chronology of his most famous plays. Like, was there a play before? What plays before Hamlet did he become famous for?
at the time,
Correct, at the time.
um, I mean,
Because
Romeo and
this took
Juliet's
place,
before
Hamlet
that,
took place at the Globe
right?
Theater.
Yeah. Mark, do you remember all the chronologies? So I
So
think pretty sure Romeo and Juliet's before this, right?
yeah, so
Yeah, pretty
let's
sure.
see.
Yes, because this
Yeah,
is
so
1601 when is
yeah, so
Macbeth.
I have the chronology comes the historical plays are written first with Comedy of Errors, the unfortunate Titus Andronicus. In the 1590s, Love's Labor's Lost, Romeo and Juliet.
Yeah,
Um,
and that was famous, so that became a hit.
yeah,
Romeo
That
and
Hamlet
was
is
Juliet.
definitely a big. Romeo and Juliet was definitely a
Hamlet.
big hit in its time, like very quickly, big
Yeah,
hit.
Hamlet is written between 1569 and 1601.
Wait, when? Oh,
Uh,
oh, Hamlet. Hamlet, you're saying?
yeah,
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 yeah, Hamlet. Hamlet. Romeo and Juliet's 94, 98 to 95, somewhere in there.
yeah.
So yeah, he is well known, and they depict that in the movie, right? Like when the stepmother comes, she's like, everyone's talking about it because it's Shakespeare. He's got the Globe. He's already a
Well,
big
and
deal.
they've got the house on Stratford upon
Yeah, they
Avon
got that big
already.
house. Like,
Yeah.
he's been doing well for sure. And a lot of I don't know how like famous he was before Romeo and Juliet, but I do think he was still already successful. Just looking at these lists, even at that time. But yeah, Romeo and Juliet was like a smash hit as
So
far as
what
I
was
know.
the part that you didn't buy, Kirk? Was it that
So
like, oh,
that
she's never been to a play? Because I kind of get that because she's Gaia. She's out
Not
in the
her thing.
forest. She's living with her
yeah,
kids.
I agree that that's what the movie's doing, and I after seeing that for the first time and having that first cathartic experience, I think it was very necessary. I'm just saying from like a realistic historical perspective, it just felt like, why? How could she not know anything about plays from, being the wife? Because again, this is the wife after he's already done, what are these 10, 20 plays he's done at this point, and she's never seen any plays. She knows they're doing plays in their backyard with he's doing Macbeth in the
Yeah,
backyard with their kids. Like,
But
she
with
doesn't know
the
about
three
plays.
witches.
What's that?
I took her awe as like that was the first time that they did a play at at the Globe. No,
I,
was
No.
that not
I think it was
true?
broader than that. Yeah,
No,
it
it
was.
was that was the first time she saw
The
what
play
he
there.
was in a way. Like she saw what he
Yeah,
created in
yeah.
his perform. Like I think that was like the first time that she actually, because she recognized earlier that he was a genius. That was the first time that she actually sees his genius come to light in, on the stage. And you can tell because she's never been to the theater before. She doesn't even know what the theater really is. And, her brother takes her there and then she pushes to the front as soon as she sees, the playbill that says Hamlet. And she's like awed over the whole experience, which that's a whole other thing potentially to talk about, is just that
That's what I want to
experience
talk
of
about. Yeah.
what plays are like were like then versus what they're like
Oh, that.
now.
Sure. Yeah. I mean, that's also very interesting about that part of it. And I think that even plays into the theme of the story
I
itself.
agree, 100% agree. It
Uh,
was like the audience participation was because I've maybe I'm jumping the gun, but I think that for Agnes's entire life and after the death of her son, she was begging almost in a subconscious way for people to see her grief. And nobody
huh.
saw it. Her husband didn't see it. He had his own grief that he was working through, but he couldn't see things from her. He could.
Huh.
It's the typical thing when as a husband and a wife you go through a terrible, terrible tragedy, and you grieve for it one way, and the spouse grieves for it in another way, and you can't see each other's grief. And
Yeah,
she
yeah.
finally saw his grief, and she finally, and then because of that end scene, oh my God, that was it. And I'm not gonna cry. I won't cry. That end scene where everybody's hands go out to touch Hamlet, like
Yeah,
after
yeah.
mom touches him, right? Everybody's hands go out. Like it was like they all see my grief, and that was the cathartic part. Was like, oh my God, I'm not the only person experiencing this.
So I'm having a struggle with that part that you just said at the end, that it's about seeing her grief. I don't
I may
I
not have
didn't
said
see
it
it.
in the right
I
way.
disagree with that as well. But
Yeah, I,
but
I think there's something else. I do agree, Jax, 100% with what you're saying about they didn't see each other's grief, and she was very frustrated
Right.
personally that he wasn't there. Again, he literally wasn't there.
she
And
says that over and over
yeah,
to
Yep.
him. And trust me, as a man and a husband, I took that as the cudgel that it was meant to be.
yeah,
Every time
yeah,
she said, "You weren't here or there, you weren't there," I felt personally attacked by that,
yeah,
because
because Jesse
uh,
Buckley is a badass.
she's bad, man.
Yeah,
She's
she's good.
gnarly.
Yeah, she's good.
She really brought that home, and
Yeah,
uh, and so I don't know that she felt that he grieved. He wasn't present during this time.
yeah,
He wasn't there for this thing, and so I don't think she connected with the fact that he was so despondent. And you don't get that when he's there either, because he has to go
Yeah.
back home. Yeah, or he has to go back to London. The career seems to take precedence again over the family. And by this time, she's tapped out. She's
yeah.
tapped out. She's basically a single mother raising kids in
Do you know what she was
Elizabethan
doing
England.
when he left? Did you notice what she was doing? The action she was taking when he left back to
Was
London
she
after
was she cooking
She
or was
was,
she? I forget.
no, she was peeling hard-boiled eggs.
Heart,
Yeah,
and
yeah,
that
that's
was that was Jesse. I saw an interview. That was her choice to do that specific action because there was nothing happening, and she's like, I want to do something, and they came up with this idea of like these dead eggs, right? This idea of these chicken eggs, basically, and she's cracking them and peeling them apart. I just thought it was an
Oh
interesting
wow.
action.
Well, also, isn't the egg supposed to be a representation of the soul too? So
Oh, maybe, yeah.
was that this?
It's like a
At least
hard.
that's
It's
what.
like a hard shell.
She's peeling the shell of the soul.
I don't know about
Uh,
that, but I maybe, yeah, sure. But I'm just saying, I thought it was
I
Sure.
saw that.
interesting.
I saw that in a movie.
Yeah.
Yeah. So yeah, what's the movie with Mickey Rourke and Robert De
Oh,
Niro? Uh,
this.
where
I thought you were
Robert De Niro
joking.
is the devil. Mickey Rourke is
Robert.
Angel
So
Heart. Yes. So in
I haven't
Angel
seen
Heart,
that. I thought you were talking
oh
about
dude,
Devil's Advocate.
you're missing out. In Angel Heart, De Niro's he's the
Oh,
devil, but
okay.
you find out it's a reveal. So I just revealed the end of the movie to you, but
Well, same thing
he's
with Devil's
Thanks, Mark.
Advocate.
he's working an egg and he says it's supposed to be the soul and he's crunching it up. I don't know if it had the same significance there, but
I
yeah,
don't know.
she's not privy to the fact that her husband is suffering like she is. And I think it's a revelation to her. First, she thinks he's exploiting this moment for simple
Yeah,
artistic and commercial gain. And then what she discovers is, oh my God, this is his soul. This is his grief. He is he's the embodiment and the personification of the grief that he's feeling right now. And look, I experienced this play within the play from an actor's perspective too. So when everybody reached their hand out in
yeah.
unison
I was
to
gonna-
Hamlet as he's dying, as an actor, I was feeling like that wonderful sense of communion you get with an audience when an audience gets it, when they're like on your
Yeah.
page. And there's nothing more incredible than that feeling like you surf along this spiritual and emotional wave with an audience that's vibrating on your frequency, man.
Mm,
And but even more than that, the look that passes between Will Shakespeare and Agnes when she sees him,
Yeah.
because they've gone for so long without seeing each other, literally, physically, and spiritually. They don't see she doesn't see him anymore, but when she sees him,
Oh, but what does she
that
say?
got me.
What does she say at their wedding day? And what
Hold
does
on.
she repeat at
Yeah,
the
yeah. Look
play?
at me. Look at me.
Look at me. And she whispers it, right? Because she knows that he's too far away, that he
Yeah.
can't hear her. And she's, this is why I could just keep going back to Gaia to like
Well,
look
I
at
agree with
me.
the Gaia thing, but that's what I mean by them coming together is like the first two acts, and then they split apart and they're separated, and then they come back together with this play. And I thought that was what was beautiful. Mark, I had a question about that scene you just mentioned in the actor. Do you think I have an answer in my head, but do you think the Hamlet actor, and this is such an interesting thing because it's we talked about this when you and I had the Hamlet conversation. It's like multiple levels. So is the Hamlet actor the man behind the character crying when that tear that comes down when he sees all the people looking at him, or is it Hamlet?
Oh,
How do you,
there is no Hamlet. There is the man, only the man. There is
do
only
you know
the
what I'm talking about?
I do, but I think there's no transformation that takes place. There's just completely relating to the material, and certainly at that moment he's one with the material. You know
Yeah.
what I mean?
It just, to me, it felt like the mask dropped for a second, and it was just that kid who was playing that character, just like
Sure, it
drawing up the
does.
beauty of it. And so
Yeah, he
it
does.
had that feeling of like he almost like wakes up from a fever dream
Did
and
did we
sees all
ever
that.
It
have we
did.
ever established that the person who played Hamlet in the actual production was the same person was the same person that Shakespeare was giving direction to when he was like
Oh,
plopping the
in the
nunnery
movie,
scene? Yeah, in the
it's the
movie,
same guy.
just
Yeah,
with blonde hair. Like I'm
just the blonde
curious
hair.
if that was the same
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
if
Same guy.
that if because that's interesting to me is like behind the scenes this actor has figured out Shakespeare's play. Like he didn't get it at first because he had to keep getting corrected by Shakespeare on how to deliver the lines, and now he's finally understood it. I like if that was the I don't know if that was the same actor. That would be a nice
It's the same
payback.
actor. Yeah, definitely the
That's a
same actor. I
great
just watched it
payback.
again, but it's definitely the same. I thought the same thing after the first time I watched it, but I just watched it again, and it's the same guy.
And also, he looks so eerily like, and this can't have been on accident. He looks so eerily like the actual Hamnet boy,
Oh
right?
yeah,
If this boy were to have aged 15 years,
yeah.
and then that moment when Agnes becomes super engaged with the play is the moment when she sees her husband come out as the dead father, saying, "Oh, he's switched with our son." He's
Yeah.
like, I'm not sure exactly what that was. Maybe we could show that in a clip, but I thought that was
What
the
do you mean you're
moment
not
where,
sure? You're
huh?
not sure. What are you not sure about?
I'm no, I am sure about it. I'm just saying that moment when
I know what you're talking about the moment. You said you're not sure.
no,
You
I
just said
just didn't.
sure.
I wasn't sure of exactly what she said. That's what I mean. I'm not sure of her
Oh, got
exact
it.
dialogue. It was to the effect
Yeah,
of he switched with our son,
that is what she
switched
says.
places with our
Yes.
son.
Yes. Yeah. No, he says that. Yeah, he comes out as a ghost of the father of Hamlet's father, and yeah,
Right.
and she switched. He switched.
And I think that was her first indicator of his grief. Like, oh my God, he wishes it were him. He
Yeah.
wishes it were him, then rather, and I never knew that about him. Like, I never understood that about him. And that's when they start coming back together, I think, as husband and wife.
Well, and this is part of the, not to hark on this, I don't mean to pick on you, but the disagreement about that I had earlier with you about the idea that this was she wanted public acknowledgement of her grief. I think the issue isn't any kind of acknowledgement of her grief. The issue in that moment is the understanding of her husband, right? And
Got it.
that's really because there's a sense in the even the cinematography and the way they played that out where she completely loses track of the fact that there are other people there. Like you get that sense from her, and there's some
Right.
close-ups where it's like it's just her and this, action happening it takes her a minute to get into it. At first, she's like, "What does this have to do with Hamlet?" Right? Like, why are they? And then he says the name Hamlet, and she's like, get my what did Will Smith say? Get my son's name out of your goddamn. No, I'm just kidding. Get them.
Yeah.
Bad reference to the Oscars, but she says that. And by the way, this is one of the things that one of my experiences in first watching this is I they do such a great job of just the camera moves in. There's this like deep, ominous bell sound. It's like this boom, boom, and it feels like blood pulsing. Something's going to explode. Something really terrible is happening. It's really ominous when they're walking into the theater. Like the whole crowd is coming into this theater like a bloodstream into this heart of this theater, and then everything starts. She's like, what are all these people doing here? Then everything starts with the who's there, the first lines of Hamlet. And she's like, what does that have to do? And she moves close and she skirts in. And my experience was like, oh my gosh, the rest of this movie is going to be her ruining Hamlet for all these people. Like I was nervous she was not going to shut the hell up and let me, because I've kind of been waiting for this myself. Like I was like, I just want to see what they're going to portray. And luckily, like it just added to it in the end, but it was a real nervousness on my part in the beginning of that sequence.
I want to ask Mark, what did you think of the actor's to be or not to be speech and how he chose to deliver it in the actual play?
I'm very picky about that stuff.
I know, that's why I want to ask you.
Yeah. I hate to criticize people who do Shakespeare because it's such a gigantic task, even when you're doing just a piece of it, like that. It's huge. And that's my way of talking around when I thought of this, the Shakespeare acting, because it's a little here. It's versy, right? It's versy. What I like towards the end when everybody reaches out to him is it's not versy anymore. He's actually connecting authentically with the people who are connecting authentically with him, which to me again shows the power of art. It's a catharsis for Will, but when it's genuine and comes from your gut, from your soul, everybody responds to it. Everybody rings to the same frequency, like they do. And that's what that actor experienced, was that shocking moment when, wow, fuck, look what's going on here. This is, and that can happen to an actor. You actually taken out of the moment because the audience response is so in tune with you that it shocks you into this present reality, the theater reality, as opposed to the theatrical reality of the play. You can come out of it for a second before you go back in, which I think is probably what you were talking about. Right, Kirk?
Yeah. Oh yeah. The mask falling.
Yeah.
Yeah. And
that can happen.
Yeah. So like, I guess the other thing, so once Agnes has this cathartic moment with her husband after Hamlet dies, right? So then she looks over and she sees him and they're looking at each other with that final moment. And then, or maybe this happens before this, I can't remember, but when Hamlet dies, she then almost wakes up. Like she's sad. She already reached her hand out. And then she looks around and notices everyone else.
Mm-hmm.
And that is definitely, for me, was a powerful moment as well. Because, and again, it's, to me, what I saw there was she saw the magnitude of Shakespeare's vision. Right. Like that there was something,
how effective it was, how powerful.
That this is what immortality looks like. There was a moment when the son, Hamnet, is like, she's asking, he's playing sword fight. He's crying because his father's left back for London. It's right before he's about to die. And he says, I want to be a player like, and go to London and play with my father. And in a sense, when I was watching that end sequence, I was like, he is, right? Like he's there. The spirit of him is there forever. And, just like when, an actor, Mark Pellegrino, plays him, he's embodying that, whatever that emotion that Shakespeare was feeling and expressing, it's there forever. And that is immortality. I thought that was
at that moment.
Yeah, and they have some great little hero shots from the mother's point of view of him where he's like standing with like a his legs apart, he's over the king, he just poured the wine on the after stabbing the king, and he's not a big guy, the actor, but he looks heroic, and I got this feeling of him as this great hero who's always the one who's going to win the sword fight. That's what the little boy says. I'm always going to win the sword fight, right? And there's just that I thought it was such a beautiful sequence of just like that's the power of encapsulating an emotion in art in this way.
And then what's what's Agnes's reaction like after the end when everybody is just sad and crying about it?
Yeah.
Like, what does she do?
Laughs.
For the first time since she's lost her son, we see the smile and the laughter and the amazing sense of life that she has.
It's just joy. It's just pure joy, I think.
Pure joy.
Yeah. Because she gets it. I think she finally understands. And, again, in this depiction of Shakespeare, because I think we have to just accept that, even though it's not a, ebullient, vociferous type of person, he's much more deep and dark and subdued in this movie. Earlier, she's like, there's all these within you, Shakespeare. She doesn't say the name, but within you, there are all these unknown continents within your soul, right? And I think it's all dark. Like it's a dark abyss, and there's all these, and that's her vision of him. And this is part of him. Like all those continents are all his plays and poetry that are now starting to be out there. This is midway through his career. So I thought it, I thought it was such a beautiful depiction of all that.
That's beautiful.
So did you guys have anything about grief or immortality or art or cinematography that you wanted to talk about?
Oh yeah, well, it was the lighting was interesting. It was sort of natural. It was all natural lighting. And it was a little bit dark too. But I thought it was really interesting that everything was dark up until the play. Once you get to the play, it's just so brightly lit. It's like I just had this, I had this fantasy that, that production came in with like giant daylight lights, and we're like, okay, we're like.
Well, the Globe Theater has a huge. The roof has a massive opening in it. So they would do the plays in the daytime at like 2:00 in the afternoon. So the daylight streams through the roof. And it's looked like they did it at the real Globe Theater.
They actually built, I read they built a 70% scale of it on set.
Okay, because that looks like the real Globe. I've been to the Globe Theater, and it's the only thatched roof building in all of London. They outlawed thatched roof buildings after the Great Fire of London. But they rebuilt this in the 90s with the exact materials that the original Globe was built in. It's in a slightly different location. But when you walk in there, you will see what Will Shakespeare actually saw. I actually climbed up on the stage. I wasn't probably supposed to, but I climbed up on the stage, looked out at the groundlings and where the aristocrats would have sat. They would have also sat behind you in the rafters, and it's quite an experience.
My first professional experience was on a replica of the Globe in Austin. We did Romeo and Juliet here in Austin, and it was, it's much smaller than the real one, but it's the same kind of in the round. You're on a, what's it called, thrust, theater or whatever, and just people are all around you, and that's part of the experience, is making sure that when you're over on this side, stage left, that the people on the other side can hear you. And yeah, it's just a cool experience. But okay, so anything else on Hamnet that you guys have before we move on? I thought we could end, if you wanted to, talking about Hamlet a little bit briefly, because I know you guys had some words. So this is about Hamlet. It's inspired by that, obviously, and there's a lot of inspiration of Hamlet. And while we were preparing for it, and we have someone who's played the character, so did you like Mel Gibson's Hamlet?
Well, I know I didn't like, although there were some aspects of First of all, the Mel Gibson performance is truncated, right? There were a lot of scenes that they left out
Yeah.
from the original. The Kenneth Branagh version is the complete, from my understanding, and
It's
y'all can
pretty
correct
much
me
the
if I'm wrong.
complete
It's the complete version. And so the Get Thee to
It's the
Nunnery.
only complete version.
on video.
Film.
Yeah, okay.
Film. Yeah.
So the Get Thee to a Nunnery scene took place at a completely different setting in the Mel Gibson version versus the Kenneth Branagh and the To Be or Not to Be it was a completely different setting.
It was three settings, because this is my story from Mel Gibson. So when I worked with Mel back in the early 90s, he invited me to his trailer, made a cappuccino, because we started talking about stunts and martial arts, and then we started talking about plays. And of course, he had already done Franco Zeffirelli's Hamlet, and I said, I thought you were great in it. I actually did like his performance quite a bit, still do, actually. And when I studied his performance for my own version of Hamlet, I liked it. I don't like the fact that Zeffirelli cut out Horatio, because Horatio is one of the only person in the play that Hamlet reveals his true side to, his truth to. And you need that, since Horatio is a real sounding board for Hamlet. But he told me that working with Franco Zeffirelli was hell. All right. This is not an actor-friendly director. And he did the To Be or Not to Be speech in 3 separate locations during 3 separate weeks. And the depth of field of focus for the camera was so shallow that he couldn't move his head, too much, or he'd go out of focus. So not only is he doing a speech that's supposed to be done in one fell swoop on 3 separate occasions at 3 separate times in the film at 3 separate locations, he's so out of sequence. He also has to be cognizant of the fact that he can't move too much, which takes an actor out of the space that they have to be in. And this is the most profound speech in probably in English literature.
Right.
You can't be somewhere else while you're saying these words. You can't be thinking about, your head going out of focus. This is the director's job, to capture you in a context that he wants, while allowing you the freedom to be a good actor. But somehow Mel was able to negotiate around that stuff, in my view, and still come up with something that was, once I found that out, even more powerful.
Well, so I want to clarify my comments, because for the viewers that are watching, we were texting about this, right? And I was like, well, that's 2 hours of my life, 2.5 hours of my life I'll never get back. And the Mel Gibson version, now I have to go watch like Kenneth Branagh versions. But it was, my criticism is more about the production versus the actual actor, because I think I actually prefer Mel Gibson's To Be or Not to Be, believe it or not, over Kenneth Branagh's.
Kenneth talks really fast, but he has to get
and he's standing in a mirror, with like people, and I actually thought that the Hamnet version of To Be or Not to Be aligned closer to Mel Gibson's version of To Be or Not to Be, because they were both contemplating death, and you could see that they were contemplating death. But I didn't get that as much.
Well, I think if you watch the whole Branagh thing, you will get that. I mean,
you do, and I have seen the Branagh. I have seen the
death.
entire Branagh version. It was just a while ago that.
Oh, I thought you hadn't seen any of them.
No, I had. I just needed a refresher. I've read everything on Shakespeare. I've everything. I've read all of his works.
I didn't realize that when I recommended it.
Yeah, I just like.
I recommended it because it was short. You just said you didn't have time to do stuff, so I was like, "Here's the."
I didn't have time to rewatch it. Yeah,
I do like the Mel Gibson one.
What you said, so you were about to say something, Kirk, that I thought was interesting. You said it's not just about contemplating death.
Yeah, I think it's wider than that. I mean, it's.
I agree with you, but I wanted to hear what you were going to say.
It's about the what I think it's about is life worth progressing and continuing. It's not, which is different than contemplating self-termination. That's part of it. But the deeper question, Harold Bloom wrote a really interesting book simply called.
Not a fan of him, by the way. I'm not a fan of Harold.
I have my problems with Harold Bloom, but he has some moments. Let me put it that way. He's a
Okay.
great literary critic. He has a book called A Sea of Troubles, and that comes.
Which I've read. I think I've read.
Oh, you have read that, yeah. And
Yeah.
there's just all the stuff in To Be or Not to Be speech about, um, just and they even put it in the movie just about the shocks of life and the I don't remember the term like just the shocks of flesh or something, just things that can happen and like and I just thought the meditation is about with all this stuff going on, what is it that do I want to keep existing and keep moving forward and having this consciousness because I'm always so conscious and I don't want this anymore. To be or not to be is that feeling to me.
Well, if you think about the context of it, it's right before he's going to act, right before he's going to commit himself to action, and that is what it is. He is contemplating whether or not he should. It's not just should I live or die. It's should I act or not. I mean, what's the use, kind of thing.
Can we
Will it
take it
matter?
to a philosophical level of to pursue or not to pursue values or to
Not
I know that
values, but
sounds a
yeah,
little objectivisty, but like is it more on like a metaphysical, like
yeah.
what is existence? What does it mean to exist?
Yeah.
If I decide to continue to exist, what's my life going to be like after that kind of thing?
You can almost throw a rock at this blindly and hit something in it. Yeah, I mean,
Yeah.
it's that big. It's
Yeah.
that big.
Yeah, because he does contemplate death itself. Like he does
Hmm.
contemplate like if there's almost the idea of like what dreams may come that comes from here, right? Is that in this speech?
Yeah.
Yeah, that's the
What
speech.
dreams may come when we have shuffled off this mortal
Mortal
coil and
coil.
skip us
Yeah,
pause.
so
Yeah.
he's literally saying like, what is there an eternity after this? Because that would change your perspective on things, I
Well,
think.
hell, definitely. If there's
Yeah.
hell,
Yeah, if there's yeah, exactly. Like depending on what kind of consequences afterwards, that's
he's
gonna
concerned
depend
about
on
the
something.
state of his. I mean, the state of his soul has concerned him through the whole play. I mean, that's in my view what he's trying to protect his soul. He doesn't know whether he's been contacted by a demon or a real ghost. His dad is asking him to do something that's a cardinal sin that will condemn his soul to hell. So
Yeah,
he
which is
does have
murder.
to, yes, to murder
Yeah,
somebody
yeah. Just so people know.
in an act of vengeance. It's a very, very bad thing, and so he's on the horns of a pretty horrible dilemma.
Yeah. So it's I think for me the Branagh I just love the Branagh from beginning to end. I was riveted for 4 hours, and that's pretty hard to do to rivet anybody for 4 hours. So I love the Branagh version. I did like the Gibson version as well, but
They were
it's a
just
completely different
produced
experience.
so differently.
Yeah,
Like
it's a different story.
the setting, the costumes,
But
the
that's what's beautiful about Shakespeare, though, in a sense, is
true.
that he can be so done in so many different
He
ways.
can transcend.
And my recommendation for people is to read it because I think one of the great joys of Shakespeare and of all great stories, really, is that you can play the first director in your mind a little bit. This is a great imagination experience. And then when you go see these stories done elsewhere, you can compare and think about them in different ways. To me, it's one of the great joys of literary art, and especially Shakespeare, because well, also like most Shakespeare plays are never done word for word. Like it's very rare to do any like even if you go to the most professional place, they're usually cutting some small section out,
Yeah.
something.
As I told
Especially
you,
Hamlet.
we had to cut. We used Campbell Scott's version of Shakespeare because he did a fairly good filmed version of Hamlet. He was actually a very interesting Hamlet, but
Yeah.
his cuts were really good, so we used them.
Yeah. Yeah, those are good stuff. Okay, guys. So any last thoughts on Hamnet? Anything we didn't cover in
Go see
Hamlet?
it for anybody out there.
Well, hopefully people have seen it if they're watching this, but otherwise we
Definitely
ruin the whole
see
thing.
it, but then
I guess we did.
Yeah.
also,
Yeah, go see it.
read Hamlet too. That's like as Kirk suggests, read it, and then we just talked about two versions: the Mel Gibson version and the Kenneth Branagh version. Definitely take a look at those two. But I think, are we supposed to get to ratings, Kirk?
Oh yeah, sure. Let's do our thumbs up, thumbs down. Thank you. I forgot. Um, so I'm just gonna say it. I'm trying to think of like what gives me two thumbs up these days. I don't know. This is definitely a thumbs up though. Thumbs up for me. Two thumbs up. I'm trying to think like that's a high standard. So I want to have something high. So I'm gonna say not two thumbs up, but just one. One very enthusiastic thumbs up. I loved it.
I'm going to give it two thumbs up because
Ooh.
I loved the film. As an aspiring artist myself, I loved the idea of the transformative nature of art in there. I love the way art brought two people together from a grief that most people cannot survive and brings them together ultimately in the end. I like the way art can be used to divert your grief into something powerful and creative and eternal. It was a very, very beautiful and heroic movie to me, despite my misgivings about seeing a normal guy, a normal William Shakespeare. He wasn't
Yeah.
the star of the show. It's really Agnes, and really about the power of art. I think that's the most important thing in there. So
Yeah.
two thumbs up for me.
Nice.
Give it
Uh,
one thumbs up for me.
one thumb. All right.
Yeah. Um,
Okay.
uh, why? I enjoyed it immensely. It was a great storytelling. I thought it was visceral and just the shooting of it. I loved the like you were saying, Kirk, the old world meets the Renaissance, new, more civilized world, and I like the character Agnes. I love the acting when her son died and she
Oh,
screamed and then she went
yeah.
silent. And then I found out after that, I found out she won the Oscar for that. I'm like, whoa, yeah, she deserved that.
She deserved it. Yeah.
Yeah, and I love the ending too when she had this awakening about her husband and how he grieved. So it was a beautiful story.
And the scream, according to interviews, was like a final take. And she's like, let me, and she just, I think it was a final, but it was like Jesse was just saying, it was just something that came out of her.
You could
That
feel it.
like,
You
and
could
she,
Yeah.
the way
feel
she, you feel it for sure. And she talks about how they had become a family on set
it.
and she really connected to the young Hamnet actor just
Oh,
as a boy, and so just the feeling of him dying, like that's just the she called it
oh.
like the immortal cry of mothers of all time who have
Mm-hmm.
lost their, and you
Oh
feel
yeah.
it.
Oh, I
Yeah,
just
it's
get chills
that is
thinking
the
about it.
guy that you're talking about. There's something eternal about her performance of
Mm-hmm.
just she hit something that's like shit.
And no joke, the kids in the child actors were amazing. Um,
Yeah,
they
yeah, they
were
were
just
so cute
They
too,
amazing.
were.
just adorable.
So
And they
I would
picked
say
the
I
most
would give
adorable
it
people. Go ahead.
um, from the start. It was a thumbs up for me, but then like this way because I still wasn't like totally hooked. And then once the play started, I was like, oh hell yeah. It like
Yeah.
shifted for me. I was like, oh, and here's the hilarious part is I had a scheduled call with a friend, and it happened to hit right after Hamnet died, and I didn't know what the rest was about. And
Oh,
he and his friend had seen Hamnet, but they decided to turn it off right after he died because they're like, I don't know, we're not like compelled. And this is a person who's very artsy. And they were like, I don't know, I'm not very like, I wasn't very like intrigued, but I didn't know where it was heading. And now I like, because it was so close to the time that we were filming our podcast that now I have to like text him back, be like, you have to watch the end. You have it just it's all it that play makes it. You can't have that movie without that play. It was amazing, and that to me, like two thumbs up, 5, 6 Kleenexes full of tears.
yeah,
So
there's something that Leonard Peikoff used to say, and I resonate with this a lot. Leonard Peikoff's Ayn Rand's Air, for those who don't know, intellectual air. He used to say this about like he would read like a whole novel for like to one line, like just because there's one line that just made him feel something. And I think there's a lot of truth to that, where I think a lot of people have this expectation of art that it's like they need to have a constant state of orgasm in order to enjoy it. And it's like, no, sometimes you're reading War and Peace, man, and it's like 600 pages of like, it's all right. And then there's a moment that is so life-shatteringly amazing and makes everything worthwhile. And that's again, that's what makes good art. That's why if something in the climax fails, oh my God, it pisses you off, right?
Oh yeah.
It's like you just wait, you literally wasted my time. This, it was like, yeah, you could have some qualms at the beginning, but it's so worth it. Like that is an
It was
experience.
payoff in spades.
Yeah, payoff in spades. I agree. And there's a lot of art like that. I say that about poetry all the time, especially longer poetry. It's like you read some Wordsworth long poem that I love, and people are like, what's in it? It's like, well, when you get to the full totality of it, there's like something about life and consciousness you've never thought of before. Anyway, so I'll stop there. But and Shakespeare's like that too. It's, although, I think you have to know the whole story before you judge. All right. So I think that's good. Thank you, everybody. This has been a fascinating conversation about Hamnet, and the beauty of art. So we'll see you next time.
Thanks all.